In a small, quiet town in Idaho called Willow Creek, there stands an old wooden house at the very edge of the forest. Its windows are broken. Its paint has long since peeled away. The front yard is overgrown with weeds. Even during the daytime, people avoid walking too close to it, because for more than 40 years, locals have believed that something still lives inside that house, something that cries in the middle of the night, something that never left. The story began in the winter of 1981, when a mother and her 6-year-old daughter were found dead inside the home under mysterious circumstances. No one ever discovered what really happened, but according to the people of Willow Creek, their spirits never moved on. In 1981, the house belonged to Emily Harris and her 6-year-old daughter, Lucy. They were known as a happy family. Neighbors often saw them gardening together or walking through town hand in hand. Nothing seemed unusual. Several neighbors noticed they hadn't seen Emily or Lucy for days. Concerned, one of them contacted the sheriff. When officers entered the house, they found a disturbing scene. Emily was lying lifeless in her bedroom. Lucy was found beside her own bed. Neither showed signs of injury. Nothing in the house appeared disturbed. There was no evidence of a struggle, no sign of forced entry. It looked as if they had simply gone to sleep and never woken up. Investigators searched for answers, but none were ever found. The case remained a mystery. The house sat empty after the tragedy. Months passed. Then strange stories began to spread through the town. An elderly woman living nearby claimed she heard a child crying late one night. At first, she assumed it was coming from another house, but when she listened carefully, the sound seemed to be coming from the abandoned Harris home. The crying continued for several nights. Soon, other neighbors reported hearing it too, a little girl sobbing somewhere inside the empty house. Whenever someone approached to investigate, the sound would stop. The moment they walked away, it would begin again. 12 years later, in 1993, a family purchased the property. They didn't believe in ghost stories. To them, the house was simply old and neglected. For the first few weeks, everything seemed normal. Then one night, their 8-year-old son, Jamie, woke up screaming. His parents rushed into his room. Jamie was shaking uncontrollably. He claimed that a little girl had been standing beside his bed. She wore a white dress. Her pale face was covered in tears, and she hadn't said a word. She had simply stood there crying. His parents assumed it had been a nightmare. But the same thing happened again the following night, and the night after that. Several weeks later, Jamie's mother experienced something she couldn't explain. One evening, she woke up thirsty and walked into the hallway. As she passed the staircase, she noticed a small figure standing at the top. The child had long, dark hair hanging over her face. She stood perfectly still. Thinking it was Jamie, the woman called his name. The figure slowly looked up, and then vanished. Just disappeared. The next morning, she checked on Jamie. He'd been asleep in his room the entire night. Soon, the family noticed a terrifying pattern. Every single night at exactly 2:47 a.m., the sound of a child crying echoed through the house. Sometimes it came from upstairs, sometimes from the basement. Other times it sounded as though the crying was happening directly outside their bedroom door. The family searched every room, every closet, every corner of the house, but they never found anything. As the weeks passed, fear began taking over their lives. Sleep became impossible. The crying never stopped. One stormy night, Jamie's father decided he had enough. When the crying began, he grabbed a flashlight and followed the sound into the basement. The air felt unusually cold. The deeper he went, the stronger the crying became. Then he saw it. A small figure standing in the far corner of the basement. It looked like a little girl. Motionless, silent. He called out to her. No answer. Taking a few cautious steps forward, he raised the flashlight. The beam illuminated the corner. Nothing was there. The figure had vanished. Then, from somewhere directly behind him, he heard a soft whisper. "Where's my mother?" The voice sounded like a child. He turned around instantly. No one was there. Terrified, he ran upstairs. A few days later, while cleaning the attic, the family discovered an old diary. It had belonged to Emily Harris. Most of the pages described ordinary life, but the final entries were disturbing. One entry read, "Lucy keeps talking to another little girl in the house." Another said, "She says the girl only appears at night." And another, "I have never seen her, but Lucy insists she lives here." The final page contained only a single sentence. "Tonight she's coming for us." There were no entries after that. A week after finding the diary, the family experienced something they would never forget. At around 3 in the morning, everyone woke up at the same time. The sound of a child crying echoed from upstairs. Along with it came another sound. Footsteps. Slow, heavy footsteps moving through the hallway. Jamie's father slowly opened the bedroom door. The hallway was dark. At the far end stood a little girl in a white dress. She was holding someone's hand, but it wasn't another child. Standing beside her was a tall, shadow-like figure. Its face could not be seen. The two figures stood motionless, staring directly toward the family. For several terrifying seconds, nobody moved. Then, both figures slowly faded into the darkness and disappeared. The following morning, the family packed their belongings and left Willow Creek House forever. No one stayed there for long after that. Even today, locals claim they still hear a child crying from inside the abandoned home late at night. Some people report seeing a young girl standing near an upstairs window. Others swear they have heard footsteps moving through empty rooms. And according to the oldest residents of Willow Creek, if you stand too close to the house after midnight, you may hear a small voice whisper from the darkness, "Have you seen my mother?" And then everything becomes silent again, as if nothing was ever there. But the people of Willow Creek know better, because some houses don't forget, and some spirits never leave.